I'm Seraphine Harridge, 28 years old, and I just got called a freeloader by my own mother, right in front of 50 guests at her anniversary party. My stepfather shoved a gift box into my chest. "We don't need your cheap gift. Get out." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled, opened the box, and showed them what was inside. Since that night, my phone hasn't stopped ringing. 57 missed calls from my mother, 32 from Graham, 17 from Blake. Text messages flooding in, each more desperate than the last. But I've learned something over 12 years. Not every call deserves to be answered. To understand why I stood there holding a gift worth more than most people earn in a decade, I need to take you back to the day everything shattered. 12 years earlier, I was 16 when my father died. Leon Harridge was a construction engineer, middle-class income, but the kind of man who worked overtime for weekend beach trips, who never missed parent-teacher conferences, who made Sunday pancakes with chocolate chip smiley faces. That Tuesday morning, he kissed my forehead before leaving for a business trip. "When I get back, we'll visit that college campus you've been eyeing. You're going to do extraordinary things, sweetheart." He never came back. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel on Route 87. Instant, they said, as if that made it easier. I wanted to see him one last time. My mother said no. "You don't need that image in your head," Clarabelle told me, voice flat. "Remember him how he was." At the funeral, I watched her accept condolences with practiced grace. Perfect makeup, tailored black dress. I thought we'd grieve together. I thought wrong. Within 2 weeks, she'd boxed up everything. Dad's books, tools, even his father's watch with the inscription, "Time spent with family is never wasted." She didn't ask if I wanted anything. Not one photograph. Not one t-shirt that still smelled like his cologne. Nothing. I found out why when I overheard her phone call one evening. "The insurance money came through," she said, her voice excited. $200,000. I can finally start over. Start over. Like 18 years with Dad had been a rough draft to crumble and discard. I stood frozen in the hallway and felt something fundamental break inside me. 18 months later, I moved into Graham Thornton's house in New Jersey with one suitcase. My mother had married him in a courthouse ceremony I wasn't invited to. "Just a formality," she explained. "Nothing worth making a fuss over." The 4-bedroom colonial had a manicured lawn and 2-car garage. Blake, Graham's 20-year-old son, got the master guest suite with an ensuite bathroom. I got a converted storage closet, 8 by 10 feet, water-stained ceiling, one tiny window. Blake drove a new BMW, a graduation gift. He was headed to California for university, all expenses paid. I transferred schools mid-junior year, leaving behind every friend I'd ever made. When college applications came, I found my mother arranging flowers in the kitchen. "Mom, I got a partial scholarship, but I still need $8,000 a year. Could you—" "Seraphine." She set down the flowers. "Your father's insurance money is for rebuilding this family. Blake needs support for graduate studies. You're nearly 18. Time to stand on your own feet." Graham appeared in the doorway. "This house doesn't support freeloaders. Want a degree? Earn a scholarship. That's how the real world works." I stared at them, my mother nodding along, and understood with devastating clarity. I was no longer family. I was an inconvenience from a life she wanted to forget. Graham made one thing crystal clear. I'd be out the day I turned 18, 3 weeks away. The night before graduation, I lay in that storage room doing the math. No savings, no support. An $8,000 gap. 3 weeks until I was homeless. I'd tried everything. Mall jobs at minimum wage, tutoring for $20 an hour, begging my mother for one real conversation. Each time, silence, or, "We have responsibilities to this family. Blake's education is expensive. You need independence." Independence. As if abandoning me was character building. That night, staring at water stains on the ceiling, I felt everything pressing down. If I gave up now, I'd become exactly what they believed, a failure who couldn't survive alone. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, Boston area code. Almost ignored it. But something made me answer. "Seraphine?" A woman's voice, warm and cautious. "This is Rosalind, your Aunt Roz. Your father's sister. My heart stopped. Aunt Roz. I hadn't heard from her since the funeral. My mother had cut off all contact with Dad's family. I know your mother doesn't want us talking, Roz continued, but there's something important, something your father left for you. That weekend, I lied about a study session and took a 6-hour bus ride to Boston with $40, everything I'd saved in 3 months. Aunt Roz met me at the station. She looked exactly like Dad. Same kind eyes, same gentle head tilt, same smile. The resemblance nearly broke me right there. "Thank you for coming," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like lavender. I know this wasn't easy. Her small apartment had one wall covered in photographs of Dad, images I'd never seen. Dad at 10, gap-toothed. Dad at 16 in an oversized suit. Dad at 25 with young Roz at her graduation. A whole life my mother had erased. We sat at her kitchen table. Roz placed her hands over mine. Your mother and I never got along, but that's not why I'm telling you this. Your father made me promise. She explained how Dad had quietly begun to worry after marrying Clarabelle. Not about love, he loved her despite everything, but about what would happen to me if something went wrong. Leon didn't trust Clarabelle with money, Roz said carefully. He saw how she spent, how she prioritized. He was afraid that if anything happened to him, you'd be left with nothing. So, he planned ahead. She retrieved a small wooden box with brass hinges from her closet. Leon gave this to me 5 years ago, made me promise to keep it safe and give it to you only when you truly needed it. She pushed it toward me. I think that time is now. My hands trembled opening it. Inside, on faded velvet, was a savings account passbook. The name, Seraphine Marie Horridge. Your father opened this when you were 3, Roz explained. Every month, no matter how tight things got, he deposited something. $20, $50, sometimes more with overtime. I opened to the last entry. Balance, $47,000. The room blurred. I couldn't breathe. He never told your mother, Roz continued. Kept it separate from joint accounts, afraid she'd find a reason to spend it. Gave me all the paperwork. Beneath the passbook lay an envelope yellowed with age. Dad's handwriting. I opened it with shaking fingers. My darling Seraphine, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there to protect you, but I need you to know I never stopped trying. I know your mother has her flaws. I know she doesn't always put you first. That's not your fault, sweetheart. It was never your fault. This money is yours. Use it to build the life you deserve. Don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough. I've known since the day you were born that you would do extraordinary things. I believe in you. Dad. For the first time since the funeral, I let myself truly cry. The kind that shakes your whole body and leaves you gasping. Roz held me, rubbing circles on my back like Dad used to do during thunderstorms. When I could finally speak, "Why now? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Your father's instructions were clear. Wait until she truly needs it, until she's ready to fight for herself. She looked at me intently. You're ready now, aren't you? I thought about the storage room, Graham's cold smile, my mother's selective amnesia. 3 weeks until I lost even that terrible space. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Roz kept the original letter in a fireproof safe. When you need proof, I'll be here. I didn't understand then, but I would. I returned to New Jersey with a secret burning in my chest. My mother was waiting when I walked through the door. Where were you, really? Arms crossed, expression cold. Mrs. Patterson called, said there was no study session. I met her eyes. I went to see Aunt Roz. Color drained from her face. Fear flickered, then hardened to anger. I told you we don't speak to that side of the family. You told me. You didn't ask me. This is my house, my rules. Actually, I said quietly, it's Graham's house. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Graham appeared. What's going on? She went to Boston, my mother said. To see Leon's sister. Graham's lip curled. The one who couldn't keep her opinions to herself? He stepped closer. You're living under my roof. You follow my rules. We don't associate with people who disrespect this family. They are my family, I said. My father's family. Your father's dead. The words hit like a slap. My mother said nothing. Did nothing. Graham smiled. After graduation, you're out. No negotiations. Start figuring out where you're going. I held his gaze. Didn't flinch. Don't worry, I said. I already have. I walked past them both to my tiny room and closed the door. 3 weeks. That's all I had to endure. Then I'd be free. The auditorium was packed with families, proud parents clutching cameras, siblings holding balloons, grandparents dabbing eyes with tissues. I walked across the stage alone. The seat where my family should have been sat empty. My mother and Graham were at a dealership that morning, buying Blake a new sports car for his first year in California. Something that makes the right impression, I'd overheard Graham say. I accepted my diploma alone, smiled for the photographer who asked, "Anyone want to take pictures with you?" Then shook my head and kept walking. That afternoon, I packed 2 suitcases. 18 years of life fit into 2 rolling bags with room to spare. Before I left, I took one last look at the storage room, the water-stained ceiling, the tiny window, the bare walls I'd never been allowed to decorate. I placed a note on the kitchen counter. Thank you for teaching me exactly who I can depend on. Then I called a cab, rode to the bus station, and bought a one-way ticket to New York City. Aunt Roz had already arranged a studio apartment near campus. Rent was affordable. The neighborhood was safe. And for the first time in 2 years, I had a door I could lock without asking permission. I sat on the bare mattress that first night, watching city lights flicker through the window, feeling something I hadn't felt in so long I almost didn't recognize it. Freedom. Terrifying, exhilarating freedom. I didn't know then that I wouldn't speak to my mother for nearly a decade. I didn't know the next time I saw her, I'd be holding a gift worth more than anything she'd ever given me. All I knew was that I had survived, and now I would build. I waitressed at a coffee shop near campus 30 hours a week between classes. Some nights I survived on day-old pastries and black coffee. I slept 4, maybe 5 hours if I was lucky. I never missed a single assignment. The first semester nearly broke me. Week 3, I cried in a bathroom stall between shifts, so exhausted I could barely stand. March, I fainted in European history from low blood sugar. Hadn't eaten in 16 hours because I'd had to choose between lunch and a required textbook. May, I had to drop a class. Couldn't afford the lab fee. My GPA that year, 3.2, not the 4.0 I'd dreamed of. But I'd survived. I applied to 15 internships, got 15 rejections. By November, my savings had dropped from $47,000 to $12,000. Tuition, rent, food, books. It all added up faster than I'd calculated. I was scared, desperate. That's when I saw the ad. Investment opportunity for students. 15% returns guaranteed. Build your future today. The company had a sleek website, professional testimonials, an office address in Midtown. I should have known better. Dad would have known better. But I was 19, exhausted, and terrified of running out of money before graduation. I invested $8,000. 2 months later, the company vanished. Ponzi scheme. The office was empty, the phone number disconnected. $8,000, gone. Money my father had saved dollar by dollar, working overtime and skipping lunches. Gone because I'd been stupid and desperate and trusting. I called Aunt Roz and sobbed so hard I couldn't breathe. "I'm so sorry," I choked out. "Dad saved that money and I threw it away. I'm such an idiot." "Sweetheart, listen to me." Her voice was firm but gentle. "You're allowed to fail. Your father failed too. He lost money on a bad investment when he was 23. Nearly lost the down payment for his first apartment." She paused. "What matters isn't that you fell. It's what you learn from it." I wiped my face. What did Dad learn? That if something seems too good to be true, it is. That slow and steady beats fast and risky every time. That failure is only permanent if you stop trying. I took a semester off, worked full-time for 3 months, double shifts at the coffee shop, weekend catering gigs, anything I could find. Lived on rice and beans. rebuilt the $8,000, and learned the most expensive lesson of my life. Desperation makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability attracts predators. I would never forget it. Spring of sophomore year, I finally landed an internship. Unpaid, at a small interior design firm in Chelsea. I spent 6 months doing grunt work, making coffee, filing samples, cleaning the studio after hours. The lead designer, Patricia Chin, barely noticed me, until Julia Montgomery walked in. Julia was old money, the kind of wealthy that doesn't need to announce itself. 70-something, sharp as glass, with standards that made grown professionals cry. She hated Patricia's design for her daughter's apartment, hated it so much she stood up mid-presentation. "This is garbage," she announced. "Generic, soulless. My daughter deserves better." She turned toward the door, then stopped, looked directly at me. "You, intern, what do you think?" My heart hammered. Patricia's face had gone white. I swallowed. "I think it's technically competent but emotionally empty. It doesn't tell a story about who lives there." Silence. Then Julia smiled. "Finally, someone with a spine." She pointed at me. "You have 1 week. Show me what you'd do instead." Patricia tried to protest. Julia silenced her with a look. "I worked 72 hours straight, skipped classes, didn't sleep, poured everything I had into renderings and mood boards and a presentation that told Julia's daughter's story. Not some generic version of luxury, but her life, her interests, her personality." Julia reviewed it in silence for 10 minutes that felt like 10 hours. Finally, "It's not perfect. You made some amateur mistakes, but you have something most designers never develop: instinct, taste, vision." She hired me on the spot. "You'll work directly with me on small projects. $20 an hour, take it or leave it." I took it. Patricia fired me the next day. Julia hired me full-time the day after that. Julia introduced me to her circle. Wealthy women with small projects, a powder room renovation, a nursery redesign, a home office makeover. My first real client paid me $5,000 for a studio apartment transformation. I'd asked for $3,000. Julia told me, "Never undervalue your work. It teaches clients to undervalue you." The client loved it. Posted photos on Instagram. I got 50 inquiries. 50 inquiries became 5 actual clients. 3 of those were nightmares. People who refused to pay, demanded endless revisions, screamed at me over paint colors. 2 were dreams. They paid on time, trusted my vision, referred their friends. Those 2 created a domino effect. My college roommate, Vivian Wu, was studying business. She saw what I was building. "Let me handle your contracts and invoicing," she said. "You focus on design. We split profits 70-30. We shook hands in our tiny dorm room. It was the smartest decision I ever made. I graduated summa cum laude with a 3.7 GPA. Not perfect, but earned through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. 3 firms offered me positions. I chose the smallest, $55,000 a year, but unlimited creative freedom and room to grow. At 25, I was promoted to lead designer. Salary, $85,000. At 26, I met Ethan Rivers at an architecture networking event. He was kind, patient, stable. He never pushed me to confront my past before I was ready. Never asked why I flinched when people mentioned family. At 27, I opened Seraphine Harridge Interiors. 2 employees, a small office in Brooklyn, and a client list that was slowly growing. At 28, I had a team of 5, annual revenue of $800,000, and a reputation among Manhattan's elite. I kept it all private. No social media, no press interviews, just a professional portfolio website and word-of-mouth referrals. My mother couldn't find me if she tried, and I wanted it that way, until Architectural Digest came calling. "We want to feature your work," the editor said. "The Riverside Drive penthouse project. It's stunning." I refused. Twice. The 3rd time, Julia called me personally. "Seraphine, stop hiding. You're not that scared 18-year-old anymore. You've built something extraordinary. Let people see it." So I said yes. The article published in March, 4 glossy pages featuring my work, my philosophy, my name. 2 months later, a thick cream envelope arrived at my office. Return address, Thornton Residence, Cedar Grove, New Jersey. Inside, embossed silver lettering. You are cordially invited to celebrate the 15th wedding anniversary of Clarabelle and Graham Thornton. 15 years. My mother had been married to that man for 15 years, and this was the first time she'd reached out. I called Aunt Roz. I got something strange in the mail today. When I told her, she went quiet. Then, I've heard things. Through old neighborhood friends. Graham's business hasn't been doing well. Something about a failed expansion. They've had to make cuts. So they're struggling? Enough that people have noticed. Your mother sold the Hamptons Beach House. The country club membership is apparently in question. I stared at the invitation. You think that's why they want me there? Your mother has never done anything without a reason. She was right. If Clarabelle was extending an olive branch after a decade of silence, it wasn't because she missed me. It was because she wanted something. What are you going to do? Roz asked. I picked up the invitation again, ran my thumb over the embossed lettering. I'm going to go. Are you sure? Not for her. For me. I need to close this chapter. The weeks before the party, I bought a 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side. Doorman building, good schools nearby, safe neighborhood, the kind of place someone could build a life. $450,000, money I'd earned myself, dollar by dollar, late night by late night. Ethan watched me wrap it, sleek navy box, silver ribbon. You're really giving them something. I know how it looks. Help me understand. These people treated you like garbage. I smoothed the ribbon. It's not about them. It's about who I want to be. Inside the box, a single key on a velvet cushion. Beneath it, the property deed. I want to give her a chance, I explained. A real one. If she's changed, if there's any part of her that regrets what happened, this could be a new beginning. Ethan took my hand. And if she hasn't changed, then at least I'll know I tried. The night before the party, I slipped something into my clutch. A copy of Dad's letter. Documents showing the savings account history. Proof that everything I had, I'd built on the foundation he gave me. Not stolen. Not borrowed. Mine. I hoped I wouldn't need them. But I'd learned long ago that hope and preparation aren't the same thing. What I didn't know was that I was walking into something far worse than I'd imagined. The party would expose secrets I hadn't anticipated, desperation I hadn't predicted, and it would give me the chance to finally answer the question that had haunted me for 12 years. Was I enough? I arrived early, 15 minutes before the party officially started, wearing a simple black dress that had cost more than my first month's rent in that studio apartment. The country club looked exactly like the photos my mother used to post, before she stopped posting anything at all. Crystal chandeliers, white linen tablecloths, a string quartet tuning instruments in the corner. I was heading toward the main ballroom when I heard voices from a service hallway. Angry, desperate. My mother and Graham. I stopped, hidden behind a marble column. We don't have a choice, Clarabelle. Graham's voice was harsh. If we don't sell the house before December, the bank forecloses. But, Blake, my mother's voice cracked. He'll know we failed. Failed? We've already failed. $800,000 in debt. Eleanor Brooks knows. The whole damn club will know within a month. Silence. Then my mother, crying. I can't go back to living like I did before. I can't. That's why we invited your daughter. Graham cut her off. She has money. That magazine article, Designing for Manhattan's Elite, she's probably worth millions. My heart hammered against my ribs. You need to apologize, Graham continued. Be humble. Get her to help us, at least enough to keep the house. I will not beg that ungrateful. Then we lose everything. I stepped back quietly, my hands shaking. So that was it. Not reconciliation. Not regret, just desperation and greed. The gift in my hands suddenly meant something entirely different. I walked into the ballroom as guests began arriving. Conversations paused, heads turned, whispers followed me like shadows. Is that Linda's daughter? I heard she's been struggling. Living hand to mouth somewhere in the city. I kept my expression neutral, the navy box steady in my hands. I spotted my mother across the room before she saw me. Clarabelle stood at the center of a cluster of women, gesturing animatedly, her silver anniversary jewelry catching the light. She'd aged well, or expensively. Her smile was bright, practiced. Then her eyes found me. The smile froze, just for a second. Surprise, calculation, annoyance. Then the mask slid back into place. She didn't come to greet me, just gave me a slight nod, the way you might acknowledge the catering staff. Seraphine. I turned. Blake stood behind me, champagne flute in hand, smirking. So the prodigal daughter returns. He looked me up and down. Come to beg for scraps? I met his gaze evenly. I was invited. Sure you were. He stepped closer. Word of advice? Don't embarrass yourself. Nobody here cares about you. He'd gained weight, thinning hair despite being only 32. The BMW was probably long gone, sold to pay off his father's debts. My stepmother felt sorry for you, he continued. Said you'd probably show up in something from Goodwill, but we should be gracious anyway. Is that what she told everyone? Among other things. That you couldn't hold down a job, that you blame everyone else for your problems, that you're basically homeless. So that was the narrative, the ungrateful daughter who couldn't survive on her own. Interesting, I said calmly, that she talks about me at all, since she hasn't called in 10 years. Blake's smirk faltered. Whatever, just don't cause a scene. He nodded at the gift box. And don't expect anyone to be impressed by whatever cheap thing that is. I thought about telling him, thought about watching his face change when he realized who I'd become. But not yet. Not like this. Excuse me, I said. I should congratulate the happy couple. The main table fell silent as I approached. Graham sat at my mother's right, nursing whiskey. His face had grown harder over the years, deeper lines, a permanent furrow between his brows. The look he gave me was the same one he'd worn the day he told me to get out. I stopped in front of them and placed the box on the table. Happy anniversary, Mom. My mother glanced at it like it might bite her. Then she turned to the women beside her, country club regulars in pearls and designer dresses, and laughed. Oh, look! My daughter decided to show up after all these years. The women exchanged glances, polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes. That's a lovely box, one offered. My mother didn't touch it. I'm sure it's very thoughtful. She emphasized the word like a joke. Seraphine was never very good with gifts, or money, or planning ahead, really. Graham snorted. Remember that Christmas she gave us those homemade picture frames? Laughter rippled through the table. What's in it? Another woman asked. My mother shrugged elaborately, pushing the box aside. Probably something from a clearance rack. That's about all she can manage these days. Her voice grew louder. Performing. This is my daughter, everyone. The one I told you about. She gestured at me like I was an exhibit. Hasn't called in years. Couldn't finish college properly, and now she shows up here with... She waved dismissively at the box. Mom. Don't mom me. Her eyes hardened. I know why you're here. You heard we were doing well and came looking for a handout, same as always. The room had gone quiet, dozens of eyes watching. You're a freeloader, Seraphine. You always have been. Graham stood up, chair scraping loudly. He grabbed the box and shoved it toward me hard enough that I had to catch it against my chest. We don't need your cheap gift. His voice carried across the room. Take it and get out. My mother nodded approvingly. He's right. You're embarrassing yourself. The silence was absolute. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. 50 pairs of eyes burned into me, some pitying, some curious, some simply entertained by the spectacle. I could feel my heartbeat in my temples, every judgment, every assumption, every lie my mother had told about me pressing down. An older woman near the back shook her head slightly. A waiter froze mid-step, champagne bottle in hand. Someone whispered, "Poor thing." For a moment, I saw every version of myself who'd been told she wasn't enough, would never be enough. Then I felt something else rise up, something that had been building for 12 years. Calm. I looked at my mother, at Graham, at the crowd of strangers who thought they knew my story, and I laughed, not bitter, not mocking, a genuine soft laugh of release. "What's so funny?" my mother snapped. "Nothing." I held the box steady. "I'm just thinking about how you have no idea what you just refused." "Excuse me?" I began untying the silver ribbon. "You wanted to know what's inside? Fine, let me show everyone." I set the open box on the table where everyone could see. Inside, resting on navy velvet, was a single silver key. Beneath it, folded precisely, a sheet of official-looking documents. I lifted the key first, letting it catch the light. "This," I said, my voice steady, "is the key to a 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan, Upper West Side, Doorman Building. Good schools nearby." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. I unfolded the documents. "This is the deed, fully paid. No mortgage." I paused. "Valued at approximately $450,000. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I was going to give it to you," I said, looking directly at her. "A place you could go if you ever needed a fresh start, a gift from your daughter." A woman beside my mother gasped audibly. "You? Where did you get money like that?" Clarabelle's voice had lost its performance quality. "That's impossible." "I earned it," I said simply. "Running my own business, Seraphine Harge Interiors. We specialize in high-end residential design." I let that settle. "You might have seen our work featured in Architectural Digest last spring." The whispers grew louder. A man near the bar pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "That's impossible," Blake blurted from somewhere behind me. "You're lying." "Google it." Richard's face had gone an alarming shade of red. My mother looked like she'd been slapped. "Mom, you told everyone I was struggling," I continued, "that I couldn't hold down a job, that I was practically homeless." I gestured at the box. "Does this look like I'm struggling?" No one answered. Then Eleanor Brooks stepped forward, silver-haired, elegant, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I recognized her from my father's funeral. "Clarabelle." Her voice was cool, precise. "You told me your daughter was unemployed, living off the generosity of strangers, that she refused to take your calls." My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out. "Mrs. Brooks," I nodded respectfully. "It's good to see you again." "Seraphine, dear." Eleanor's expression softened slightly. "I'm glad to see you're doing well, despite what I was led to believe." A murmur ran through the guests. More phones emerged. I could see people searching, reading, showing screens to each other. She really is a designer. There's a whole website. It says here she did the Riverside Drive penthouse. I turned back to my mother. "You never called me Mom, not once in 10 years. So where did you get your information about my life?" Silence. "You didn't," I answered for her. "You made it up. You told people whatever story made you look like the victim." "Clarabelle," Eleanor crossed her arms. "Is this true? You've been fabricating stories about your own child?" Graham grabbed my mother's arm. "Don't answer that." "Why not?" I kept my voice even. "What else does she have to hide?" The room was watching now like spectators at a trial. I could see the shift happening, doubt spreading like cracks in ice. "While we're being honest," I continued, "let's talk about what really happened after my father died, about the insurance money, about where it actually went." My mother went pale. "Seraphine, don't what? Tell the truth?" I reached into my clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges, creased from years of careful handling. "This is a letter," I said, "written by my father, Leon Harridge, before he died." Eleanor's hand went to her heart. "Leon wrote you a letter?" "He did." I unfolded it slowly. "And I think everyone here should hear part of it." My mother lunged forward. "Give me that!" Graham held her back, his own face ashen. I began to read, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "My darling Seraphine, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there to protect you. I know your mother has her flaws. I know she doesn't always put you first. That's not your fault, sweetheart. It was never your fault." A woman near the front wiped her eyes. "I've put aside money for you. Separate from anything your mother can access. Use it to build the life you deserve. Don't let anyone tell you you're not good enough." I lowered the letter. My father knew. I looked at my mother. He knew that if something happened to him, you wouldn't take care of me. So he made other arrangements. "Leon wrote that?" Eleanor's voice was barely above a whisper. "Clarabelle, you told me he left nothing for Seraphine, that the insurance barely covered the funeral." My mother said nothing. "The insurance payout was over $200,000, I said quietly. "I never saw a penny of it. It went to this house, Blake's education, a new car, a country club membership." The crowd's murmuring had become a low roar. Graham pulled my mother close, whispering urgently. She looked like a woman watching her carefully built world crumble. For the first time in 12 years, she had no script. My mother recovered faster than I expected. Tears welled in her eyes, the same tears I'd seen her summon countless times before when she needed sympathy. "Seraphine, sweetheart." Her voice cracked perfectly. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't realize how much I'd hurt you." She reached for the box. "Let me make it right. We can start over. I'm your mother." I pulled the box back before her fingers could touch it. "No." The word hung in the air. "What do you mean, no?" The tears dried instantly, replaced by something sharper. I brought this gift for someone who deserved it, someone who might actually want a real relationship. I closed the lid with a soft click. "You're not that person." "You can't do this to me." "You did it first." The room was deathly still. 5 minutes ago, you called me a freeloader in front of every person here. You said I was worthless, that I couldn't survive on my own. You've been telling them that for 10 years. That was different. How? I tucked the box under my arm. You humiliated me publicly. You lied about me publicly. And now you want what I have. That's not how family works. Eleanor stepped closer, watching the exchange with a mixture of fascination and something like respect. "If I'm being honest," I continued, "I came here hoping you'd changed, hoping there was some version of you who actually wanted a daughter, not a target." My mother's mask slipped entirely. Pure fury blazed underneath. "You ungrateful little—" "I'm grateful," I cut her off. "Grateful I learned early exactly who you are." I turned toward the door. Graham blocked my path before I reached the exit. "Now hold on." His voice had shifted to something almost friendly, the tone of a salesman sensing a slipping deal. "Let's not be hasty. We're family. Families have disagreements." "We're not family. You made that clear 12 years ago." Things were said in the heat of the moment. "You told me your house doesn't support freeloaders." I met his gaze without flinching. "So I left and built my own. Why are you complaining now?" Blake appeared at his father's shoulder. "Look, I know we haven't always—" He trailed off, searching for words he'd never needed before. "But this is crazy. You can't just walk out with a $500,000 apartment. I can do whatever I want with my money." "But—" "We're strangers who shared a house for 2 years," I said. "In that house, you got everything. I got a closet." Graham tried again. "What if we talked about this like adults? Maybe there's an arrangement." "I'm not interested in arrangements." I stepped past them both. My mother had risen from her chair, makeup streaking where the tears had run. Real tears now, maybe. Or just a better performance. "Seraphine." Her voice cracked. "Seraphine, please. I made mistakes. I know that. Just give me a chance." I stopped at the door, turned one final time. "You had chances, Mom. 12 years of chances. You chose yourself every single time." I looked at the room full of witnesses, their shocked faces, their whispered conversations, their phones still clutched in manicured hands. When you're ready for a real relationship, one based on respect, not what you can get from me, you have my number. I walked out into the cool October night. The door closed behind me like a final punctuation mark. Ethan was waiting when I got home. He didn't ask questions at first, just wrapped his arms around me and held on while the adrenaline slowly drained away. "How do you feel?" I thought about it, really considered the question. "Free." He smiled. "Good answer." My phone started buzzing before I'd even taken off my coat. Then it didn't stop. 47 missed calls from my mother, 12 from Graham, 8 from Blake. Numbers I didn't recognize. Probably guests from the party who'd gotten my contact information somehow. Text messages flooded in. "Seraphine, please call me back. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean any of it. You can't do this to your own mother. Call me, please." Ethan watched the screen light up again and again. "You going to answer any of those?" "Not tonight." I silenced the phone and set it face down on the counter. "Maybe not ever." The fallout arrived in pieces over the following week. Aunt Roz called first, barely containing her satisfaction. "You'll never guess what I heard." Eleanor Brooks, it turned out, had quite a large social circle. By Monday morning, the story of the anniversary party had spread through every women's group, charity committee, and country club dining room in a 50-mile radius. Clarabelle tried damage control. Everyone had misunderstood. The letter wasn't real. I'd always been difficult. "Did anyone believe her?" I asked. "Not after 3 separate guests confirmed they'd Googled your company during the party." Roz's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. "Your website got 1,500 visitors that night alone." The business consequences came next. Graham had been negotiating a major contract with a regional supplier. The supplier's CEO was a close friend of Eleanor Brooks. After hearing what happened at the party, they'd requested additional time to review the terms. Additional time stretched into weeks. The deal eventually went through, but at significantly less favorable terms. Blake's mother, Graham's first wife, caught wind of the drama from her own social network. She called Blake to express her profound disappointment in how he'd treated his stepsister, then cut his monthly support check by half. None of this brought me joy. I didn't check my mother's social media for signs of suffering or count the ways karma had balanced the scales. But there was something quietly satisfying about knowing the truth was finally out there. 2 weeks after the party, I answered my mother's call. Just once, for closure. "Seraphine." Her voice was hoarse, stripped of polish. "Thank you for picking up." I almost didn't. A long pause. "I know. I understand." I waited. "I want you to know, I've been thinking about everything you said, about the choices I made. I know I wasn't the mother you needed." This was the part where I was supposed to say it was okay, that I forgave her, that we could start fresh. I didn't. "What specifically do you regret, Mom?" Silence. "Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you regret getting caught, not what you actually did." "That's not—" She stopped, started again. "When your father died, I was terrified. I grew up with nothing. My mother was abandoned with 3 kids and no money. I swore that would never be me. So you abandoned me instead." I didn't see it that way. "I know, that's the problem." I heard her crying, real crying this time, the ugly, graceless kind. "I just wanted to be safe," she whispered. "I understand fear." I kept my voice gentle but firm. "But being scared doesn't give you the right to hurt the people who depend on you. What can I do? How do I fix this?" "I don't know if you can." I took a breath. "But if you want any kind of relationship with me going forward, it has to be real, equal, no manipulation, no stories about me to your friends. Okay? And no calling to ask for money or favors." A longer pause. "I understand. I hope so, Mom. I really do." I hung up. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a boundary. 6 months later, I gave away the apartment, not to my mother, to Aunt Roz. She stood in the empty living room, tears streaming down her face, the key clutched in her hand like a lifeline. "Seraphine, I can't possibly—" "You can." I hugged her tight. "You're the one who saved me. You kept Dad's promise when no one else would. This is yours." She'd spent 30 years in that tiny Boston apartment, paying off nursing school debt, working double shifts at the hospital. She deserved a place with good light and a doorman and neighbors who brought cookies at Christmas. The feature in Architectural Digest led to 3 new high-profile clients. My team expanded from 5 people to 9. Ethan and I got engaged on a quiet Tuesday evening. No fanfare, no audience, just the 2 of us and a ring that had belonged to his grandmother. I built a family, not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. Roz, Ethan, Vivian, my college roommate who'd let me sleep on her floor during the hard years. Julia, my first real mentor who'd believed in me before I believed in myself. My mother called once a month. Short conversations, surface level. She never asked about the apartment again. Graham's business eventually stabilized. Blake got a real job. Something in sales, according to the grapevine. Whether any of them had actually changed or just learned to hide their true selves better, I couldn't say. It didn't matter anymore. I'd spent so many years waiting for my mother to love me the way I needed, to choose me, to prove that I was worth something. What I finally understood was that I'd been asking the wrong question all along. The real question wasn't whether I was worth loving, it was whether she was capable of it. Sometimes late at night, I write letters I'll never send. This one is addressed to a 16-year-old girl standing in a hallway being told she's not worth an $8,000 investment. Dear Seraphine, I know you're scared right now. I know you're lying in that little room with the stained ceiling, wondering if everyone is right about you, if you're really as worthless as they make you feel. You're not. The people who were supposed to protect you chose themselves instead. That's their failure, not yours. Their inability to love doesn't mean you're unlovable. You're going to survive this. More than survive. You're going to build something beautiful from the wreckage. It won't be easy. There will be nights you cry yourself to sleep, and mornings you're not sure you can keep going. Keep going anyway. One day you'll stand in a room full of people who believe the worst about you, and you'll tell them the truth without flinching. You'll walk away with your head high and your heart intact, and you'll finally understand that their approval was never what you needed. What you needed was permission to believe in yourself. Dad already gave you that. The rest is up to you. You are worthy of being loved well. Seraphine, age 28. I close the journal and look out the window at the city spread beneath me. The sun is coming up over Manhattan, pink and gold and promising. My father was right. I did do extraordinary things. Not because of the money he left me, but because he taught me what real love looks like. Patient, selfless, unconditional. That's the inheritance that matters. Not dollars in an account, but the bone-deep certainty that I am worthy of being loved well. I learned that from a man who's been gone for 12 years, and I carry it with me every single day.